Anyway, so perhaps the best argument against these religions is to look at the behavior of the followers, and I think the behavior of the followers shows their true beliefs. So most Christians know about and tout the persecution of Christians by Romans. In early Christianity, there were some Christians who refused to pay homage to the gods, the Roman gods, and they were persecuted for that. And if you look at it with today's eyes, it's almost like they weren't paying the defense taxes, right? The worship of these gods were the ones that were protecting Rome, and if they weren't given these sacrifices and things, then Rome would lose its protection, or at least that was how the thinking was. And Christians decided, no, we're not going to have anything to do with that. We're not going to worship any other gods. And so there was this persecution against Christians, and we're talking maybe hundreds of people being persecuted. I don't think it's even in the tens of thousands. It's a relatively small number of folks. So Christians know all about this little bit of persecution, but when you look at the Christian history, you see all sorts of persecution that the Christians have done on others. And I just want to list a few of these, some of the big ones, and just make people aware that there's really awful history here. So for example, with the Crusades from 1095 to 1272, the Crusades were against the Muslims primarily, but also the Jews and Cathars and a lot of other little religious groups. One of they were, supposedly out to kill heretics and preserve the faith, these sorts of things. There was a strong religious motivation to the Crusades. They also ended up stealing land and possessions and recapturing the Holy Land and these sorts of things. And the mantra during the Crusades was, kill them all, for the Lord knows who are his. And this is one of the abbots and one of the popes actually adopted this sort of idea that, kill them all, let God sort it out. So the idea was, you want to make absolutely sure you kill the enemy and the heretics, and if you kill some of your own in the process, don't worry about it because, they're in heaven. So that's what happened in the Crusades. We're talking maybe millions of people killed, and in a brutal way. The people who were fighting the Crusades were offered a remission from sin, which is basically a ticket to heaven. So there's a lot of religious motivation behind this. And a lot of Christians, I think, have forgotten what the Crusades were and what they were all about, and they use this term rather lightly. I think even W. Thought of the latest war in Iraq as a crusade, and he didn't really realize all the connotations that were there. Let's move on to the Inquisition. Following the Crusades and still persecuting heretics, the Inquisition was basically to go after the remaining people that were maybe not believers or thought to be Jewish or thought to be whatever. And both Protestants and Catholics did this after the Reformation. The Protestants had an Inquisition as well. So people were generally jailed and tortured and given and submitted to try to give forced confessions. Many people were brutally killed. Let's move on to the witch hunts from 1480 to 1700s. Again, this is based on fear and moral panic of this potential people who had magical powers, which of course they didn't. This is all religiously motivated as well. So there's always, there was generally some sort of false accusation based on flimsy evidence that their soul popped out or they saw them with a cat or some stupid thing. And there's an estimate of 40,000 to 100,000 people who were executed based on witch hunts. Martin Luther, the founder of Protestantism, incited the Peasants' War, 1524 to 1525, where 300,000 people were killed. So that's so Protestantism isn't immune to these things either. 5. The conquest of the Americas from 1492 onward. There's a decimation of indigenous populations due to disease and outright killing. Again, a notion of convert or die. A lot of people committed suicide rather than be part of that. There were probably several million Native Americans killed. And there was an attitude among Christianity of blaming the enemy for this, that these people deserved to be killed because they were savages. Coming up into more modern times, we have the Holocaust, which was motivated in part by Christian anti-Semitism that Hitler was steeped in, and Hitler was very fond of Martin Luther's anti-Semitic writings. We have the persecution, murder, and torture of Jews and other ethnic groups. An estimate of 11 to 17 million people have been killed, and this was all supported by the Catholic Church, and they really didn't stand up against it while it was happening. The Hitler was never excommunicated, and he was a Christian, a Catholic, and you can read his writings on that. So the conclusion that I get from these moral failures is the truth beliefs of Christians that is that it's okay to murder, torture, and persecute. And, you know, there's a very dark past in history from Christianity, and I don't think very many Christians are aware of this past. So when I bring up this sort of argument, I get all sorts of rationalizations. I get all sorts of spin and wiggling when I bring this up. And let me go through a few of those because they're kind of amusing. Feel free to call in with your own rationalization for why Christianity has been so systematically evil throughout its history. So as a rule, believers, when I bring this up, feel no responsibility at all for the actions that have gone on in previous Christianity. I mean, they want the benefits of Christianity. They want to go to heaven. They want to get that perpetual orgasm in heaven, but they don't want to have any responsibility, or they don't feel any remorse for the killings that Christianity, the religion, has done in beforehand. So here are some of the rationalizations. One is ignorance. So Christians are generally ignorant of these things. The churches don't teach these dark phases of history. If they do, they try to whitewash them. And the reason that you won't hear about these in churches is that it conflicts with them making money. So a minister, if they teach you about these things, they're going to make less money. They're basically a parasite on society, and if you don't go and tithe, they're not going to make any money. So they have no interest in letting you know that. Your ignorance is what's important. I hear denial and spin. So there's active movements to say how these terrible things that Christianity has done are not so bad. For example, the Catholic Church is trying to spin the Inquisition as not being as bad as thought. For the Holocaust, there's this notion of, oh, we're a Judeo-Christian nation and the Jews are our little buddies, and this belies the whole 1,500-year history of Christianity persecuting Jews. If you believe that the Jews and Christians are buddies, then you really are pretty ignorant of the history of your religion. There's a spin about slavery not being so bad, and other pro-Christian propaganda campaigns. For example, in our textbooks here in Texas, we have a movement. We have this guy David Barton trying to just put positive spin on Christianity. Well, the negative facts about Christianity have already been removed from these textbooks. So he's there to put icing on the cake and put positive spin. Another rationalization I hear is, oh, well, that's a different brand of Christianity than the one I practice. That my Christianity is different than Catholicism or whatever. But the problem with this is that there's 2,000 sects of Christianity, and none of them seem to have the ability to get their story straight. If there's a single God, then you should be able to pray to that God. You should be able to read Mark 11:24, where Jesus promises, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." And there's also quotes in Matthew and John that say much the same thing. If you want to ask God for whatever, it seems like a trivial thing to ask whether or not gays should be married or whatever. And so the Episcopalians, all they have to do is ask God, and they won't have to have this schism in their church. And so there shouldn't be 2,000 branches of Christianity. So all of this is really sort of not the atheist problem. It's your problem. If you can't get your story straight, then why should anybody take you seriously? And even if you claim that your little branch of Christianity is so much better, can you point to the day on which you took the lies from the previous branch of Christianity where you came from, added a few more lies, and ended up with the truth? Can you point to the day when that happened? And I don't know, I think I've ever had anybody answer that question. So, let me know how you're getting at the right answer by building on the crap that came before you.